Today, I'm just going to go through exactly how RTK works, as it's a really common question we get asked, and I thought it would be nice to spend some time explaining. The way that RTK is often depicted is that you've got a fixed point, and what in technical terms is a rover. Obviously, in our particular use case, it will be the robot. And then one or two satellites. And that gives us a rough understanding. So ultimately what's happening is that satellites are communicating with your reference station, and at the same time they're communicating with the robot, and then the robot and the reference station are communicating with each other. And generally speaking, what's being communicated is a correction algorithm. So they're comparing the satellite data and then making sure that by comparing the data of the rover with the fixed point, that the rover is where it thinks it is. So it's like a check and a balance, essentially. So the robot assumes it's somewhere because of the information it's got from that satellite, and then it's just using its relative position to a fixed known point to confirm that data. So that's fine, but that doesn't necessarily give us a full understanding of exactly what's going on in orbit. So we often think about GPS, and GPS is, or we often use GPS as the term for all geopositioning satellites. That's not quite the case. It's kind of a Hoover vacuum situation where one specific thing has become the name for the whole thing itself. So GPS is actually just the USA developed satellite constellation of GNSS satellites. So GNSS is actually a more accurate term for the constellations of satellites that we get all of our geopositioning data from. And there are four. There's GPS, which was put up by the USA. The EU manages Galileo. China manages Beidou. And Russia operates GLONASS. So those constellations of satellites, all working in tandem, are what give us our global positioning data. Now, most modern devices that we would think of as GPS devices are almost certainly actually GNSS, and they're using all four of those constellations. And that means that you get much more accurate data. So in total, there's about 120 geopositioning satellites in orbit. Each of those constellations has a different amount, between sort of mid-20s and 40. And robots or robot lawnmowers using RTK very often are communicating with all of those constellations. It's going to depend make to make. For myself, what I know most about is Mammotion, the range of Mammotion robots, and I know that they use all four of those constellations for getting their geopositioning data. So why is this relevant? So one, it gives you a better idea in terms of global coverage. So very often we are asked the question, will this work in my lawn? Will I have enough satellite coverage? And we think about coverage. When we think about satellite coverage, a lot of people's minds immediately go to 3G, 4G, 5G mobile data. And that's a completely different system. So you may have absolutely no mobile data in your lawn or around your house, but you're probably able to access the GNSS network. And for my own part, I've been all over the UK mainland with these machines, and I've not found an area where I don't get a good amount of geopositioning satellites. Now, things on the ground can affect how many satellites you see. So if we bear in mind we've got the knowledge now that we're dealing with over 100 satellites, those satellites are in orbit. They're not geostationary. So if we think about our fixed point here, it's not just communicating with one or two satellites. You've actually got more like 20 to 40 at a time from all different angles, all different points, and all of those are communicating and forming this network that we're getting accurate data from. And we need all these to make sure that we are accurate, because if you only had a few satellites, you could still get a rough idea of where your global position is, but it would be rough. You'd only be accurate to within a few meters. And that is fine when you're driving in a car. You're okay just using one constellation network, or only getting a couple of satellite signal from a couple of them, because it doesn't matter while you're driving 30, 40, 50 miles per hour faster. It doesn't matter if your position is a couple of meters off. When we're talking about a precision lawn mowing machine that needs to accurately know that it's on the lawn or not, that meter would really matter. That meter might be the difference between the robot being on your lawn or in the pond or in your flower bed. So we need that centimeter level accuracy. So the reference station and the robot need to see as many satellites as possible. So something that is really common. So we've got a house here. So say we've got your house and your robot's over here, and you've mounted your reference station here. So this is why we say that you want good clear view of the sky to get the best signal possible, because here is okay. We're going to lose some signal from over here, so we're not necessarily going to get those signals there, but we get this, 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 we get this. Now, if we were to put our reference station down here, that's more of a problem, because really you're only getting it from this side. You're losing a lot of potential signal that your reference station could be receiving. And that means that your positioning data will be less accurate, or worst case is not enough positioning data to get any sort of reading. And then your robot will not be able to verify its position with its fixed point, and from there the whole system collapses. So that is fundamentally how RTK works. A point of difference between different makes of lawnmower is then exactly how that telemetry between the reference station and the robot is communicated. Also, depending on different makes, may depend on whether you have the reference station locally on your property or whether there is one that's off-site. So again, I'll speak to the brand I know the most about, and that is Mammotion. So in the Mammotion system, you have your own reference station in the garden or wherever, and that communicates with the robot via LoRa radio, and it means it can penetrate through buildings fairly well, so you don't have to have a line of sight from the reference station to the robot. That LoRa connection means that you don't have to have any internet signal involved in the process. So as I mentioned earlier, when people think of signal, they think of a 4G signal, mobile signal. So when Mammotion robots are using RTK, you don't have to have a connection to the internet for that system to work, because the communication between the robot and the reference station is via radio. The trade-off of that is range. A LoRa radio transmitter, it doesn't have an infinite range, certainly. Specification is about 150 meters, but there are LoRa transmitters that can do further. Certainly, I've had some situations where I can get it to work further than 150 meters, but that is ultimately what the specification says. And honestly, in a domestic setting, 150 meters is almost certainly going to be enough, because whether the robot is in your lawn relative to the reference station, they're going to be in range to communicate. Another way for that telemetry to go between the robot and the reference station is via Wi-Fi or via 4G. So there's nothing wrong with that, and that can mean that you can connect to a reference station that's much further away. So some makes of robot lawnmower will have they'll have a reference station that is managed by the dealership, and there isn't a reference station on your lawn. But again, the trade-off or the drawback is that you've got to have a strong and consistent 4G signal or Wi-Fi signal everywhere in your garden for the machine to be able to get its accurate positioning data and verify where it is with the fixed known point, and that can cause some difficulty. So in terms of things that can interfere with the RTK signal from the satellite signal, trees are often a big one. The water that's inside, like leaves and branches and things like that, that can cause the signal to attenuate, so to become weaker. So under heavy, dense tree cover, some RTK systems struggle to work. They struggle to get enough satellite signal. And again, as mentioned, if you have your receiver right next to a wall, then often that satellite signal can be blocked and you're not seeing enough satellites for the machine to work. So now that we understand what RTK means in general, let's have a look specifically at Mammotion's INavi system. I want to talk specifically about INavi, or networked RTK in general. So rather than having our fixed point, what we have instead is a data cloud. And the data cloud is getting signal from a network of RTK reference stations. So this is very, very common in the agricultural industry. So you're using an existing network of RTK reference stations. They're all receiving their own signals. So lots and lots and lots of fixed points, and they're all telling the cloud where they are relative to everything else based on their satellite data. When a robot is using a networked RTK, it's receiving its own satellite signals, and then it's comparing that data with the RTK network data in the cloud. This telemetry requires an internet connection. So, your benefit is that you remove a reference station of your own from the equation, so you don't have to find a suitable location for that in your garden. You don't have to power that. You don't have to worry about that anymore. Your drawback is the same as any other system that requires this telemetry between the robot and the reference station to have an internet connection. You need a strong and a stable internet connection at all points in your garden for this system to be reliable. And that's something that only you can determine. You need to see if what your signal in terms of internet is like before you turn on a service like this. Because if it's not good everywhere, it certainly is not what we'd recommend. Because then you lose the security of having your own reference station that can communicate with the robot via radio telemetry that is entirely offline. Or in the sense of internet connection. So hopefully that makes it clear. Something else to bear in mind with the INavi service specifically, so we're talking about Mammotion specifically here, is that is a paid-for service as well. And a lot of network RTK machines or services are paid-for services. They're subscriptions that have a yearly cost associated with them. So generally speaking, for the vast majority of lawns, we'd recommend using the standard solution that comes with the machine in the case of Mammotion, where you get your own reference station, set it up, and then the communication between the robot and the reference station is via radio. I hope this video was helpful. If you enjoyed it, please like, leave a comment or subscribe if you want to see more content like it. And thank you for watching.